Hello and welcome to Fenro's e-learning sessions on knowledge management. I am Petra Herold. I am a trainer and consultant for knowledge management, experience capitalization, and organizational learning. This is an e-learning video with a focus on knowledge management in projects, experience learning, and project lifecycle, and where and how you can capitalize and share knowledge. If you've not listened and watched the video on the basics of knowledge management, I highly recommend you to watch the video basics on knowledge management before you continue with this video to avoid misunderstandings and make sure that we talk the same language when it comes to knowledge and knowledge management. With this video, I will share with you some ideas of what knowledge and which role knowledge plays in a project lifecycle. For those organizations that work with projects and programs, this is the core business. So we will relate knowledge with the project lifecycle. And I will inspire you and share some ideas of how experiences can be capitalized and which methods I use or other organizations use for this matter. And we will have a closer look on knowledge products and services. What is it and how can you offer those knowledge products and services in a user-friendly and impactful way? We start by connecting knowledge with a project lifecycle or a program lifecycle. Now, I've presented here a very generic life cycle of project work, which starts here on the top with the programming. Programming meaning what area, which sector, which country, where do we actually work? So the bigger framework of your work. And then within that context of a country or a region or in a sector, you identify what are the needs, what are the root causes or the problems and challenges, and you formulate then your project, your logic, what you want to achieve and how you want to achieve it. You either use a logical framework or you describe a theory of change. Now, what is the impact that we want to have and how will we achieve it? What are our outcomes, the expected outcomes? What are the outputs that we need to do? So what are the activities and the specific resources, the budget and the time and the frameworks to implement it? So this is a formulation step. And then if you get the funding for your project, of course, you set up your project team or teams. You look for staff members, and recruit them and set up the structure for the project and implement it. Now, the implementation phase, which is here shown in green, always goes hand in hand, of course, with monitoring. Monitoring what you do and on a regular basis also leads, of course, to adapting your practice, making sure that what you have identified and formulated, if that is still valuable and relevant for your practice in the context of the implementation. So you adapt it, you adjust, you implement, and then when the project comes to an end, or even some organizations evaluate in the middle of implementing a project or a bigger program, you could have a midterm evaluation, but at the end, you can do any type of evaluation, be it an external evaluation or even an internal auto-evaluation facilitated by your team. This depends on the requirements of your funders, of your donor organizations, and your internal requirements for evaluation. And the recommendations, the findings of an evaluation normally feed back into the programming, or you could even say the cycle closes here to identify needs for a specific region or topic. Now, knowledge and knowledge management, so KM stands for knowledge management, has various entry points within this project lifecycle. You could ask yourself now, in this life cycle, where do we actually produce and create new knowledge or knowledges? And where do we need experiences, lessons learned, knowledge or knowledges? These two questions, having them in mind, shows you then when you do your programming, what type of knowledge, experiences, and explicit knowledge documents and guidance from others do we need to program our work? You could ask the same when you identify the needs, what type of knowledge is needed, and to formulate what type of knowledge do we need to formulate and structure a good project proposal, etc. So a lot of knowledge is actually needed. A lot of lessons learned, experience is needed in this blue phase by programming, identifying, and formulating. But also in the implementation and monitoring, there are certain knowledge needs, be it on the structure, how do we actually monitor? There is a lot of new knowledge created out of your organizations that you might want to access. There might be new innovative ways to do project monitoring that you might find out in the middle of your project that they are existing and you could actually apply them. So knowledge needs are also in this implementation and monitoring phase of high relevance. And some might say that when you evaluate, you create, you generate new knowledge because you have a closer look. What have we done? What results have we achieved? What do we learn out of it? So clearly, the evaluation phase is a knowledge creation and generation process, but a lot of knowledge is also needed to do a good evaluation and to use evaluation for your work. So there is also a lot of explicit knowledge and experience structured in handbooks, evaluation guidelines, and lessons learned on how to do evaluation that can be useful here. And knowledge management, project lifecycle, means that you have a look at your project or program's lifecycle and identify where do we need what type of knowledge. And you remember in the basics on knowledge management, I explained to you that you can classify knowledge in various categories, being the human knowledge or the codified, structured, explicit knowledge, or the external knowledge that is found outside of your team or your organization. And you assess and discuss where do we need which type of knowledge and how can we make this knowledge accessible, how can we use it, share it, and capture it. In the case that we have new knowledge that is generated, how do we capture it and make sure that others can also use it and that we ourselves in the project team can use it. And for project work, what is for most organizations really relevant is the tacit knowledge, this experience, this knowing how the colleagues or how, let's say, our collaboration partners, the farmer groups that we work with, or the schools where we implement activities, how do they do their work and what can we learn out of these experiences? So we will soon now into an area of knowledge management, which is called the experience capitalization. Now, why would you want to capitalize your experiences of your team, your project team, on your staff members? First of all, experience would be needed before one has made it. Now, this has been said by a professor of Hochschule St. Gallen. I've met him once at a big international conference on knowledge management. And if you think of the project life cycle, when you identify what you need to change and to to develop a region or to offer services for schools or for farmer groups. Now you define what you want to implement, what you want to do with the given budget or with the resources that you have. So the project identification and formulation phase, one is interested to find out what experiences are there with farmer groups in, let's say, Senegal and rice production. You want to have access to these experiences before you make them yourself. Because if you start implementing a rice exporting project in West Africa and Senegal, and you do it and you realize while you implement the project that there is a lot of things that are not the way you have thought that they are, and there is a lot of burdens and obstacles and challenges that you have not thought of, you are interested to have access to experiences if they exist on similar projects, similar activities from others, be it within your organization or even outside in the network or in the region. So the experience would be needed before one has made it. That is one big why you should capitalize and also share experiences. Now, what does it actually mean to capitalize? Capitalizing is to transform the experience into shareable knowledge. Remember the knowledge iceberg that I've shown you in the basics e-learning video, that the structured codified knowledge is the ones that we find in the manuals, in the books, and where it is accessible. We want this tacit, very tangible, and not so easy to share knowledge that is found in your people's and your colleagues' practice. We want to bring this tacit, implicit knowledge, these experiences, this know-how into a structure, to codify it in a way to make it shareable. So the capitalization is one step to make experiences shareable with others so that they can use it in a more efficient and structured way for their work. I am sharing with you now a systematic way to transfer knowledge. This includes the capitalization. However, I call it systematic knowledge transfer because the capitalization of experiences and documenting it, bringing it into a structure, is only the third step that you see here. We need some 2 steps before we actually capitalize to make sure that we capitalize the right knowledge at the right time for those people that need the knowledge. What does that mean? Basically, when you want to use the experiences, those treasures, as I call them, you see here the treasure like the seashell. If you want to use the treasures of the experiences of your project teams, you cannot capitalize and document and share all of them. You remember, we need targets and we need to prioritize and assess what is the knowledge that is crucial for us. Is it the knowledge on project evaluation that is crucial for us? Or is it the very specific knowledge on how to prepare a farmers group for exporting rice? These are 2 types of knowledges that you could decide to work and to capitalize to improve your work as an organization. So the first important task is, if you want to systematically use the knowledge, the experience, to define and clarify what is my strategic knowledge area, or what are at the moment now in the year 2024, what are our strategic knowledge areas in our department for projects and programs in West Africa, for example. And once you've decided this and defined it, this does not mean that you defined it once forever all. No, you defined it like any strategic decision for a certain period of time. Let's say from now, today, until 2027, we decide that we need to improve our evaluations in the programs and projects. So we focus on experiences to do impactful evaluation in our project work. And then you might readjust that. If that's not necessary anymore, then you can say we have a new focus. But define it and make it clear. It makes your life easier. as a knowledge manager and as a team and a project manager. And once you have clarity on what type of knowledge is relevant for you at the moment, you identify where do we find experiences on those topics? Where do we have projects that have worked with rice farmers and marketing, exporting rice, for example? Who are your knowledge carriers? The knowledge carriers are those people, those colleagues that have experience on the topic. They might be inside the organization or they might be outside. Maybe you find out that there is a West African Rice Association with a lot of knowledge and experiences on exporting rice and conditions necessary to do so. The knowledge carriers could be outside and they are also inside. And of course, you need to identify and assess who are your knowledge users, who are the staff members, your colleagues that need these experiences to apply them for their work. Are those the farmers themselves that you define as your knowledge users? Or are those the project managers in your country office in Senegal? And this is impacting on how you need to capitalize and structure and also prepare the knowledge and the experience. So identify your knowledge carriers and users and understand them. Find out how they work and what they need to do and their work and use the knowledge. And the third step then is to actually capitalize those experiences that you found, that you identified, and document them, bring them into a structure. By documenting, I don't mean that you always need to develop a document itself. There are various ways. And the fourth step then is, of course, you share it with your knowledge users or even beyond. You communicate what you have found out, the experiences that are there. And of course, the knowledge users, those that need the experience, they should also apply it and adopt the experience from others for their own practice. As a knowledge manager or a knowledge management team, this step number 5 is of high relevance for us because that is actually the impact of our knowledge management work. You do all these steps because you want the knowledge users, those that need the experience, you want them to apply it and to use it for their work. If that is not happening, we need to find out why. And if it is successful, if they use it, we also want to know and be informed on it. And we want to have those impact stories on efficient and successful knowledge work, experience capitalization work, to use it to improve our process for experience learning and also to guarantee that we continue to have funding for this type of knowledge and experience learning work. Now, how can you capitalize experiences? There are various ways and methods out there in this big world of knowledge management. And in the resources below this video, you will have some links to organizations, learning materials, and examples for experience capitalization and also methods. For example, you find a link that links you to a video on the method systematization of experience, for example, which is a very participatory method to capitalize experiences internally for your team. There, you could develop a questionnaire for experience capitalization, guiding the team to answer questions now, what has happened and what do we learn out of it? The same goes for an after-action review or a lessons learned workshop. That means that after a certain activity in a project or at the end of a package of activities or the project, you do a workshop and you discuss what has happened, why has it happened that way, and what do we learn out of it. So you do a review after you have closed the activity and you develop lessons learned. Or you could use a storytelling approach to say, we look specifically on one group of farmers or one one farmer or one project manager, and you tell the story of what he or she has experienced and what has changed and what lessons learned and do's and don'ts you produce out of it. So experience capitalization needs structure, and the structure can be different and can be adapted to your needs. And there are a lot of methods out there, and we are sharing some with you to inspire you. Have you ever thought to share also your mistakes with others? Well, there is a saying of Mr. Dave Snowden, who has been a knowledge manager of IBM International. He said people learn more from sharing worst practice than the imposition of best practice. Sometimes you see that knowledge management and experience learning tries to harvest the good and best practices out there. However, human beings learn a lot by discussing worst practice or mistakes or failures. So when you invite your project teams to openly discuss what has went wrong, where has been some decision that was not leading you to the result that you needed, there is a few criteria of few things that I recommend you to take into consideration. First of all, sharing or capitalizing and sharing learnings of failure or mistakes. Try to focus on what has happened and what you have learned out of it, and not blaming the persons who did what. So the question, what has happened and what do we learn out of it, is focus, and make it a habit that in your organization you speak openly, you talk about things that did not work out as planned and what you've learned of it. So an organizational culture, a culture of, a failure culture, as some organizations call it, needs to be established step by step. And this, you can play a role by starting yourself to talk openly. And myself, I have worked for an Austrian NGO for 17 years, and we have established a game, an experience learning game. We call that No Olympics, so the know-how experience Olympic Games. And those that shared learning from failures experiences, they were rewarded in the first 3 rounds of our games. Reflect on how could you actually reward those who, or appreciate those who share and talk openly on their mistakes. A first assignment and reflection for you to dive a bit deeper into this topic means take some time and reflect on your own, or discuss it with some of your colleagues when you have a coffee or lunch, or even set up a team meeting if you want to, and discuss with them what do we actually already do in our organization to capture, to capitalize knowledge within our projects and programs. And what is already done in our organization to share experiences within and between projects and programs. I am sure that you already do some activities for capitalization and sharing of experiences. So take some time and reflect on them, take notes, and discuss it with your colleagues. When it comes to improving your knowledge management, I try always to invite organizations to appreciate what is already there and find out what is already existing, because you can build on what is already there, and you can easily collect stories of change stories, success stories, or even failure stories on knowledge management out of these examples that are already there. And as a third invitation, I would say try to imagine that you would set up an internal marketing campaign for learning from failure in your organization, or in your department, or in your project team, depending on the structure of your organization. How would your marketing campaign look like? What would you do to motivate your team, your organization, to learn from failure, to start to capitalize and share also the learning from failures? Who would be part of your promotion team, and who could help you to promote? When it comes to capitalizing experiences in your organization or in your project, we very quickly come to a point where we talk about handbooks, manuals, reports, lessons learned, chapters, evaluation reports, because that is where most of the organization capture experiences, tacit knowledge in a structured way. I assume that you all have a lessons learned chapter in your project reports. Now, when was it that you have read a really remarkable, great lessons learned in one of those reports? Reality shows, or based on my experience, is that the internal project reports normally are not the areas, the spaces where the lessons learned, the real learning is happening. Now, you remember from the basics e-learning videos, I already told you that in knowledge management, we talk about knowledge products and services so that you create outputs with your knowledge for actually an impact in your work. Now, the knowledge products are codified and captured knowledge outputs, like your wiki articles or your guidelines for project evaluations or the handbooks for marketing projects or pharma groups establishment or checklists for handover of project teams, podcasts, video tutorials, etc., etc. So those are so-called knowledge products. And the knowledge service is any activity delivered in the process with human involvement. Like you offer a training where knowledge is transferred from one expert to other experts, or you organize an event, or you send one of your project colleagues to a knowledge event, to a conference, or you organize a peer-to-peer learning session, a group, a network of people to learn from each other, also called a community of practice, knowledge cafes. So any activity, the after action review, lessons learned workshop, for example, would be a knowledge service that you as an organization or any other external or internal department offers you to capture, share, and discuss knowledge and experiences. Now, a knowledge product, only because it exists, does not mean that it is impacting and actually helping the knowledge users or the colleagues that actually need this knowledge. There is a lot of knowledge products out there stored in your SharePoints or server structures that are not really used. And some knowledge managers even call that the cemetery of knowledge products out there in this big world. And to avoid that, you invest time and really the resources of your colleagues, of your experts, to produce knowledge products that are not read or used, there are a few quality criteria that you could take into consideration to make sure that your knowledge product or products are user-friendly and structured in a way that they can impact the work of your colleagues. First of all, make it sure that a knowledge product and what you produce is relevant for the users. This is guiding to, you need to define what is relevant for your work and for your users, and you need to get feedback of your users on the different knowledge and knowledge products. Make your knowledge product, be it the evaluation handbook or a checklist for pharma groups establishment, easy to transfer to the work of your users and make it easy to be applied. What does that mean? Well, if you hide your checklist for pharma groups in your intranet on the 5th level, so you need to actually click 5 times somewhere, which is not really clear why this knowledge product is there, and then it is written in German and or in English, and the French and Spanish speaking cannot use it, this is not user-friendly. So make it easy to transfer and easy to be found and accessible, and build on given knowledge and experience of the users. what does that mean? If you work with farmer cooperatives and rice export already for 15 years, and you develop a checklist of how to do that work, you need to build on the given experiences that is already there. So involve your experts that have experience, or refer to knowledge products and guidelines and checklists that are already existing within your organization or externally. Make sure that you define a known review criteria exists. That means, I've already said, peer review and get user feedback. That helps you to develop your knowledge products in a way that are really user friendly. And I've already said, make it easy to find and easy to use. Nothing more boring than a 50-page document without any orientation, what it's about and how to navigate in that knowledge product. So on orientation, one page or the starting page is a very important, the good title, very important things first, like who is the one I can contact, where do I find more information, what is the objective of that knowledge product, and the big picture and summary. And of course, make sure that you put a date. Make sure it is up to date, but also inform your readers and your knowledge users of what is the actual reference for that document. And is it the final version, the latest version, or version number 3, and the date. And of course, if your knowledge users do not have the time to read, to scroll through different knowledge products, they might not use them. And remember the project lifecycle, the programming step and identification and formulation. Sometimes there is a high pressure on project teams to do that work, to develop a project application, and there is not enough time foreseen to harvest existing experiences and use them for your project development. So you need to make sure at your organization that your knowledge users, if those are the project managers, it needs to be in their project work and in the process for project development. There needs to be time foreseen to integrate existing experiences and use the knowledge products that are there. Yeah, and of course, make sure that the language you use is clear and the terminology is clear to all, and that it's complete and it provides all information that you need. These are some quality criteria for knowledge products. You might even find more. Go ahead and discuss that with your colleagues. And I share with you a short assessment for knowledge products and their user friendliness. I will not read it through because you get this overview, this assessment table as a resource document below. You can download it or access it. And I invite you to take one of your knowledge products, be it an evaluation report or a success story that you described, or any checklist or handbook or manual that exists in your organization, and do a quick assessment of its usefulness and user-friendliness, and use the table that I shared with you and that is accessible below this video. And at the second step, I would like to invite you to search for at least 5 different examples of really outstanding knowledge products. Anything that you have seen internally from other colleagues, or that you might have produced yourself or externally from others, manuals, videos, articles, stories, checklists, any type of knowledge product. And once you've collected them, assess what makes them so user-friendly for you, and why do you like them actually? What could you learn from them, from those knowledge products, and how could you integrate into your own knowledge products that you might already produce or that you plan to produce? Below this video, you find some examples, some links for knowledge products that I shared with you. And go ahead and have a look in the networks that you are in different communities, or even completely outside your own range of organizations. What knowledge products are there? What are great examples? For me, I can tell you that after 17 years in development cooperation and more than 13 years in knowledge management experience learning, there are a few success factors when it comes to capitalizing experiences, sharing them with others, and using them for your project work, for an efficient and high quality project work. Capturing and capitalizing knowledge within projects needs clear objectives, time, capacities, and structures. Sometimes organizations make the mistake that they assume that capitalizing experiences and sharing them with the colleagues is part of the staff members' work anyway, and they don't even talk about it or make it an official part of the job description of a project manager. And that means that it can easily get lost, because normally your colleagues in the projects have enough things to do, even without capitalizing experiences and sharing. So you need to have clarity on why do we do it, how and when do we do it, how much resources do I have for it, and who is doing what and which methods do we use. So make it part of the existing organizational and project processes. Monitoring and evaluation procedures are a very good entry point to anchor learning and experience learning in your organizational processes. A lot of organizations call their MEL or meal processes monitoring, evaluation, and learning. So the learning is already there, and you could put the learning as relating it clearly to the experience learning and establish key steps and methods and resources needed for that learning. Try to keep it simple and short. If you have a guidance on how to capitalize experiences within your projects, and even what type of knowledge products that you require to produce, the shorter, the simpler, the easier to use for your knowledge users, and also your experts, those that carry these treasures of experiences within them. They need simple and clear structures on how to capitalize it. Don't make it too complicated, and make sure that you care for good facilitation and a process setup that helps your knowledge carriers and users to do their work. As I've already said, know your audience, your knowledge users, and decide on which knowledge product you choose to prepare based on the needs and the way your audience, your knowledge users actually work and do their job. And as a knowledge management team or coordinating person, you should care for the follow-up on the use of the knowledge and the reflection of this phase. As I said, in the systematic knowledge transfer process, step number 6, to reflect on what you actually do when it comes to experience learning, needs to be done by the knowledge manager or the group of people that cares for coordinating knowledge management at your organization. Never forget to appreciate your knowledge carriers and their efforts in capitalizing, documenting, and sharing. This is hard work. It is hard work because we as human beings are used to have our knowledge in our brains, but it costs a lot of energy to bring that into a structure, and it's even more demanding for us to write it down or take a video like this. This is work that needs to be done, and it should be appreciated like any other work. Knowledge work needs to be appreciated. And as I said, one example, the Olympic Games, try to be creative and use games for experience learning. What about the idea that knowledge work and experience learning could actually be fun? Try to see it from that perspective. How can you bring a little bit of fun into your knowledge work? Your staff members and your colleagues will appreciate it, because knowledge management sometimes sounds really boring to a lot of people. And you might even think of, how do we call our experience learning? What name do we give it? What picture could you use to transport the importance of knowledge work, experience learning, and capitalizing. Thank you very much. I hope I could inspire you with some new ideas and ways how to capitalize experiences and how to link it with your project lifecycle. Enjoy the other e-learnings from Fenro on knowledge management, but also on a lot of other topics. And in case you need more information or methodological backstopping or guidance for any of your experience learning activities, you can contact me. I work in English language, French, Spanish, and German. So multilingual projects and project teams are welcome also to contact me in case you need guidance. Thank you for your attention and all the best with your experience learning, and have fun harvesting your treasures in your organization.